Hi, I'm Jimmy Chang, and we're here to talk about how to subtract fractions with ungrouping. Now, what ungrouping involves is you're pretty much borrowing ahead of time if you know that you have a smaller fraction subtracting a larger fraction. So here's a couple of illustrations. Suppose you have 6 1/4 minus 3 3/4. Now, you know right off the bat that 1/4 is too small to subtract 3/4. So when it comes to ungrouping, you're borrowing right away from the 6 in this case, and you're adding the appropriate fraction to the 1/4. Now, as you know, when you're borrowing a whole number, in this case, you're borrowing 4 more pieces. So what you're doing here is you're converting 6 1/4, and you know you have to borrow from the 6, so it becomes a 5, and you're adding 4 more pieces to the numerator. So 6 1/4 can be rethought of as 5 5/4, and you're subtracting 3 3/4. That's what ungrouping is, kind of borrowing ahead of time if you know that you have to do that. So what happens here is you just subtract it directly now. 5/4 minus 3/4 is going to give you 2/4, and 5 minus 3 is going to give you 2, and then reduce if necessary. In this case, 2 2/4 is 2 1/2. Let's do another example real quickly. If you have 7 2/7 minus 3 5/7, same kind of idea. So you know 2/7 is too small to subtract 5/7, so what you're going to do is ungroup, borrow ahead of time, 7 becomes a 6, and because the denominator is 7, you're adding 7 more pieces to the 2. So 7 2/7 is 6 9/7, and you're subtracting 3 5/7. So 9/7 minus 5/7 is 4/7, and 6 minus 3, of course, is 3, and that's about as good as it gets. So when it comes to ungrouping, you're borrowing ahead of time, adding to the smaller fraction, and that lets you subtract a little bit easier. So I'm Jimmy Chang, and that's how to subtract fractions using ungrouping.